Good morning, America. It is I, Clay Morris, here on the Amazing Grace Sports Network once again to review what went down in the NFL in Week 9. Who could have, should have, would have, and who actually did. Well, if it's 7 a.m., then let's get ready to rumble. Beginning with the Buffalo Bills traveling to the Meadowlands to take on the New York Jets. Now, Buffalo's in first place. They're looking good. They're rolling over everybody. They're the team to beat. And guess what? I took the Bills. That's right. I took the Bills. It's a smart thing, Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. And guess what? The Jets won. Yes, you heard it correctly. The New York Jets beat the Buffalo Bills 20-17. Now, there is joy percolating through all the boroughs of New Amsterdam. This joy that hasn't been seen since Mark Gastineau and Joe Klecko were roaming Shea Stadium. And most of you don't even know who they are. That's how long ago that was. Anyway, second-year guy, Zach Wilson, actually, he weathered the storm with the bullying Buffalo defense. Buffalo's defense has been their trademark, and they could not rattle second-year quarterback Zach Wilson. He threw for 185 yards, short, not that much, but for two touchdowns, only one touchdown. But on the other side, Josh Allen, one of the premier quarterbacks in the league, looks like he needs a new pair of glasses because he threw two unpressured interceptions to New York Jets when they were like 15 yards away from the nearest Buffalo Bills player. Well, he threw those two interceptions, and basically threw away the game for Buffalo. That about seals the deal. Now the Jets are just a half game out of first place. And once again, they are contenders in the NFL. And now the Minnesota Vikings, they went into Washington to take on the Washington Commanders. And me, always looking at the potential underdog, I took the Commanders. Why? Well, because they have a head coach named Ron Rivera, used to be coach of the Panthers back when they were good, and they have an up and quarterback named Taylor Heineke, who I believe was looking to prove himself. Wrong. Let's just say that Kirk Cousins, who I didn't believe in, showed me what I needed to know. Kirk Cousins of the Minnesota Vikings, even after I analyzed the theory of relativity in conjunction with football, and I studied the minutiae of winning teams over the last 4 years, and I picked Washington to win the game, and guess what? Minnesota won 20-17 on a last-second field goal. Why? Because Kirk Cousins did just enough to win, and that's all it takes. Minutia, theory of relativity, who needs it? This is just football, plain and simple. Take your dartboard, get your dart, and throw your dart up there and see which team is going to win or lose, because that's about where it goes. Speaking of which, the Atlanta Falcons hosted the San Diego Chargers. Now, Atlanta has been charging through the league. They have been making a name for themselves, surging against stiff competition. Marcus Mariota has shown everybody that he is an elite quarterback. Whoever would have thought that? But it's true. Marcus Mariota can run, throw, punt, pass, and kick, and even receive the ball if you throw it to him. So I picked Atlanta for an easy win. And guess what? San Diego won 20-17. So far, these three teams that I've mentioned so far that I picked to win have lost 20-17. So this show is beginning to seem like Groundhog Day. It's the same thing. No matter who I pick, the same thing happens. They lose, and they lose by the same score, 20-17. What's going on here? Can anybody make a tackle? All this clutching and grabbing. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Back to the game. The Falcons jumped out on the Chargers, and they had a 10-0 lead at the end of the first quarter. But the Chargers came back, and at the end of the half, it was 14-10. Then the game went back and forth before the Chargers, with a last-second field goal, won the game. And that was that. Well, speaking of losing teams, let's talk about the Detroit Lions. Now, the Detroit Lions were at home to face Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. And last week, I said that everyone in America, and that meant anyone, had a better chance of hitting the $1 billion Powerball lottery than Detroit had of winning this game. Green Bay had been on a 4-game losing streak. They were looking mean. They were smelling nasty. The Pack was looking to right the ship. And is there any team in the NFL that one would want to play when you absolutely, positively need a win other than Detroit? The answer is no. Everyone would love to play Detroit when they need a win. So historically, the answer is yes. But yesterday, the answer was no. The Lions clawed to a 15-9 win. That's right, 15-9. Green Bay lost to Detroit, and it was their 5th straight. There is panic in Wisconsin, ladies and gentlemen. The cheeseheads are stinking up the joint. $50 million man, Aaron Rodgers threw for 3 interceptions and just 1 touchdown against the Lions. I think the Lions had only won 1 game so far this year. Anyway, Green Bay fans, as Aaron Rodgers would tell you, relax. It's just a game. And that's the way you should look at it because, well, at least they didn't lose 20-17. It's not, the show's not all Groundhog Day. But speaking of losing, the Jacksonville Jaguars hosted the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, this was a battle between two win teams. Unfortunately, one of them had to win. And guess what? I picked the Raiders. So who do you think won? Yes, Jacksonville. Jacksonville came from behind and won the game. They came from behind, scoring 17 unanswered points. Yes, sports fans everywhere. The moral of this story is don't bet in Vegas and don't bet on Vegas. Well, when you got to lose a streak, you might as well keep it going. And speaking of which, Seattle traveled to Arizona, yes, to take on the Cardinals. And in this game, I picked the Cardinals to win. They were at home. They were going against a team that has been winning, so they were due for a loss. And based upon how this show is going, you can probably guess, if you don't already know, who won that game. Yes, Seattle won the game. I picked the Cardinals, which means Seattle won the game. The Cardinals lost 31-21. Geno Smith slapped, jacked, and cracked the Cardinals for 275 yards and 2 touchdowns. $46 million man Kyler Murray also had 2 touchdowns, but he was sacked 5 times for a minus 35 yards. And, well, Seattle is in first place now. First place in the NFC West, and the Cardinals are tied for last with guess who? The Los Angeles Rams. And speaking of the Los Angeles Rams, we come to the second marquee game of the day. The first one being the Jets versus Buffalo. This one had Tampa Bay. The Rams were in sunny Tampa Bay to take on Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. Now, my Tampa Bay Buccaneers and my man Tom Brady have looked terrible this year. There's a lot of reasons for that. First year coach Todd Bowles and TB12's personal problems getting aired out right in front of us. Nothing has gone right for them or TB12. Everything they have touched has turned around and bit them in the butts. They lost to the Steelers and the Panthers, 2 2-win teams. Heck, they even lost to the Green Bay Packers, who the Detroit Lions easily handled yesterday. To make matters worse, in the midst of a 3-game losing streak, here come the Super Bowl champion Los Angeles Rams. So, I'm an honest guy. I do have feelings and I do have favorite teams, and Tampa Bay is my favorite team. But that doesn't stop me from trying to correctly decide who's going to win based upon what is happening on the field and off the field with those 2 teams. So I surveyed the land, and I predictably picked the Rams to win. So, what do you think happened? So, what do you think happened? Well, of course, the Rams lost. Yes, Tampa Bay got on board first. They took the opening kickoff and drove down for a field goal. But LA answered right back with a 70-yard scoring strike from Matthew Stafford to Cooper Kupp. Well, of course, Tampa Bay answered back with yet another field goal. And, well, this was not a high-scoring game. So in the fourth, with LA leading 13-9, inexplicably, they decided to be conservative. Tampa Bay had the ball down on the 3-yard line, and they went 4 downs and did not score. So LA took over, and LA took over at the 3-yard line, and they got out to about the 20, 15 to 20. And instead of going for it with a pass on 3rd down, and I believe 4 or 5, they ran it and got stopped. Giving the ball back to, have we all seen this before? Giving the ball back to Tom Brady with 44 seconds left on the clock on his own 40-yard line with no timeouts. No timeouts. And having to score a touchdown in order to win the game. And what did Brady do? He did what Thomas Edward Patrick Brady is famous for doing. He drove the Tampa Bay Buccaneers down the field for the winning touchdown, leaving 9 seconds left on the clock. In doing so, Brady became the first quarterback ever in the history of the NFL to throw for 100,000 yards. Tampa Bay, with a record of 4-5, is now in first place in their division. Go figure. Well, I don't know how many losses in a row that is, but this is the reason why nobody, not you, not me, not anybody should bet on games. You see, because if I had to bet on any of these games, not only would I have lost, I would have been mad. But when you don't bet, there's no reason to be mad. And so there's no crying time, ladies and gentlemen. You don't have to cry about it because you didn't lose any money and you didn't lose the house. And that's the most important thing, you. Now, I did pick some winners. And one of them was my former team, which I jumped ship because of Bill Belichick. I just couldn't stand his machinations anymore, the way he treats players. The New England Patriots. You see, I may not cotton to, if I could use that word, Bill Belichick, but in the game, I'm going to try to pick the team that I think will win. And I picked the New England Patriots to win their matchup against the Indianapolis Colts. And finally, I was right. The Patriots won 26-3. Matt Jones threw for a pedestrian 140 yards and 1 touchdown. Colts quarterback Sam Erlinger threw for 103 yards, even more pedestrian, and 1 interception, no touchdowns. But this game was never close, never in doubt. It actually turned out to be somewhat of a boring affair. It was 13-0 at halftime in favor of New England. Then it was 19-3 going into the fourth quarter, again in favor of New England. And then Erlinger threw his pick 6, which made it 26-3, and that sealed the deal for the Patriots. So finally, a team did what it was supposed to do according to my predictions. But let's move on. Maybe I got a little bit better as the day went on. The Carolina Panthers rolled into Cincinnati, Ohio, looking to take on the Bengals and make a statement. And make a statement they did. They gave up 35 points to the Bengals by halftime. By halftime. I'm not even going to repeat that again. Yes, by halftime, Cincinnati had scored 35 points. I think it was 35-0. Anyway, it doesn't matter. After halftime, well, let's just say this. The game was essentially over by halftime. And to make sure that it was over, the Panthers then inserted Baker Mayfield. Yes, that Baker Mayfield. And it stayed that way. Cincinnati running back Joe Mixon accounted for 5 touchdowns. 5 touchdowns. 1 game. 4 of it rushing and 1 of it receiving. Now, the Panthers have taken the gloves off. They have let the NFL know that they will fight hard for the worst record in the league. They are now tied with Detroit, Las Vegas, and the Pittsburgh Steelers with only 2 wins on the year. The Houston Texans, of course, lead the toilet bowl race with just one win. I predicted the Bengals would win, and they did. Ain't I smart? Wow. The Miami Dolphins, they went into Chicago Stadium thinking it was going to be cold, freezing, windy, and what they got was 70-degree weather. And in a game that they were supposed to win, in a game that I picked them to win, guess what? They won. Yes, they won 35-32. And Tua Tagovailoa, however you want to pronounce that name, because I'm going to screw it up, so I just call him Tua Tags. Still has the weakest arm in the NFL, but he's pretty accurate. There was a guy named Kenny Stabler. I hate to date myself, but much in the same way, I don't think Kenny Stabler could throw more than 35, 40 yards, but it's pretty accurate, in between that. Tua Tags is the same way. He always underthrows the guy who's running the deep route. I don't know why he doesn't try to do it sooner and just throw that ball up there and see what happens. Because there's no way he can outthrow Jalen Waddle or Tyreek Hill. Just throw it up there. Let these guys go. These guys would have at least 5 to 6 more touchdowns if they didn't have to wait for the ball to get to them after they've already beat their man. So they're waiting for the ball to get to them. And usually the ball finally gets there, and then they get tackled because the defender's arriving at the same time the ball. But they have these guys beat 5 to 10 yards easily. But I digress. Tua Tags, listen. You're courageous. You're doing great. You're in the NFL, which the majority of people cannot even think about getting into, and that includes me. So if I have said anything that kind of says that you're not an NFL, I'm not saying that you're not an NFL player. You are an NFL player. You just have a weak arm, and and I'm sure you already know that. I'm not saying anything, but you are doing great with that weak arm because your team is a half game out of first place now. In the Sunday night game, the Kansas City Chiefs came back in the fourth quarter to score 8 points and send that game into overtime. Now, they would win it in overtime with a field goal. What's very crazy about this game is the quarterback of Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes threw for 446 yards and then ran for 63 yards, meaning, and I don't know if this has ever been done in the history of the NFL. This is something I would have to look at, but I didn't have time. He accounted for 500 yards himself for his team, and Kansas City needed each and every one of them to get the win. Mahomes is magic. Mahomes is magic. Mahomes did it again, and that does it for me. I think there was one more game. Let me see. I already talked about the Raiders and the Jaguars. And yes, I picked the Raiders, and we're not going to say what happened because we know what happened with the teams that I picked. I think only 3 teams that I picked to win won. And the rest of them, well, not so much. But with that, listen, I'd like to thank everybody in the NFL, all the teams, the winners and the losers, because that's entertainment. You guys go out there, you play your hearts out, and that includes the teams that lost. Even the teams with 2 wins, Vegas. Well, I think the Panthers have 3 now. But Detroit, we can't say enough about Detroit. But I want to thank everybody in the NFL for their hard work ethic. It takes a lot. As I watch you guys, and I've never seen such hard hitting as I'm seeing this year. I don't know about, have you guys seen this too? But the defenders are closing quickly. And they are getting there, and they are making some slams and some bulldogs and some body slams of offensive players. They're coming in, they're hitting them hard. So, with that being said, I want to thank everybody in the NFL for giving us a great show. There is a game tonight. I don't remember who it is. It doesn't really matter because I know if I pick them, they're probably going to lose. And you don't need to know that information. But everybody, thank you for watching. Remember, subscribe, leave a comment. Leave a comment. If your team, if you want to talk about your team winning or losing 20-17 or Groundhog Day or Bill Murray or anything that has to do with anything we talked about on this show. And remember, everybody, you are the most important person on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday again. Not your team, not your baseball team, not your football team, not your cricket team, not even your bowling team. You are the most important. So I think what we showed today that anybody can win. And that means you can win. You can win at what you want to do. Not just Detroit, not just the Jets, not just Kansas City, but maybe you have some magic in you, just like Mahomes. This is Clay Morris once again on the Amazing Grace Sports Network. Tomorrow we will have NBA at 1 o'clock. We will be talking about NBA, what teams are doing it, what teams aren't doing it. And you know what's going to lead the conversation is usually the LA Fakers and how bad they are doing and the grumbling and grousing and the drama and blah, 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 blah. You know, that's going to be, of course, but actually, no, because tomorrow's the Eastern Conference. We don't talk about the Western Conference till Thursday. So tomorrow we'll be talking about the Brooklyn Nets and their grousing and grumbling and their drama. But we will be talking about the teams that are doing it and getting it done. And that's the most important thing. Now, remember, go forth, be happy, be positive, and prosper. Clay Morris for the Amazing Grace Sports Network signing off, saying, have a good day and see you tomorrow. Ciao.